Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to another session of Biorix. I hope I'm audible to all of you. Yeah. Okay. So we are okay. Just a minute. We are sorry for the inconvenience today. We had a few technical issues, so we were sorting that out. Um, Yeah. So Biorix is a student-run biology community built for curious minds across the life sciences from genetics and microbiology to ecology, zoology, botany, and conservation. It serves as a collaborative platform where students connect, exchange ideas, and engage in meaningful scientific discussions. Today, we have a special session of Bio Talks, which is a student knowledge sharing series, a wonderful platform for you to present your insights on everything biology related. Today, we have with us Sandesh J S, who is a student who at Pondicherry University doing M.Sc. Ecology, and we will be exploring wildlife corridors, reconnecting fragmented landscapes for a biodiverse future with Sandesh. So I welcome him for the session.
Hi, thank you for the intro. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm myself Sandesh from Trivandrum, and I'm doing my M.Sc at Pondicherry University. In this talk, I'm going to present about the wildlife corridors. So, in the following session, we will know more about the wildlife corridors, their importance, the types of wildlife corridors, and their causes, impacts, and etc. So, coming to our webinar, what is a wildlife corridor? So, wildlife corridor, a habitat corridor, a green corridor, is an area of habitat connecting wildlife population separated by human activities or structures like roads, canals, dams, highways, etc. So, it's like a bridge or a link that connects two fragmented habitats or a two isolated wildlife population. So it's basically a lifeline for isolated population. So this allows the exchange of individuals between the population, which may help to prevent the negative effects of inbreeding and reduce the genetic diversity that occur within the isolated population. So the main thing about the wildlife corridor is the habitat fragmentation, which we will see on the coming slides. So when a forest or a patch get fragmented, the population staying in that forest or patch will get separated. So the separate population can only, what can I say? They are restricted in that zones only. So it will cause inbreeding depression. Like they will mate between their close relatives only or close ones because they don't have another chance or a choice for another mate because they are isolated in a population, which will basically reduce their genetic diversity. And the wildlife corridor also help in facilitating the re-establishment of a population. Or in other words, it will help in preventing the inbreeding depression and also establishing a population by eliminating the random events. The random events means the wildlife fires or a disease outbreak. So when a population is suffering or if the forest patch is having a wildfire or a disease outbreak, the population can migrate to another place. If it's in isolated stage, they will definitely die. They can't survive there. So this wildlife corridor act like a bridge or a link that they can migrate to other survival habitat. So we will look forward into that. Another important slide in this webinar is why wildlife corridors are important. So the first thing I have told is the genetic health and survival. It prevents the inbreeding depression and also the metapopulation, which is a population which is spatially separated, which interact through migration. So wildlife corridor act as a bridge connect to help the population migrate and explore. And coming to human wildlife safety, animal highways. So animal highways means it will avoid larger animals in coming to the highways, which will cause human conflict and vehicle collision. So this corridor helps in making a pathway for this wildlife so that these collisions and conflicts can be avoided. And coming to next is the climate change adaptation, species range. So climate change have taken drastically in this coming years and maybe in future also. So due to that, species are moving to colder or higher altitudes because they can't survive in this heat. The main cause is the global warming. So they are migrating towards higher, cooler altitudes or a space. And next is the resource and migration. So most of the animals, wild animals are seasonal movements. They have a seasonal course, a pathway, like an ancient pathway, which they use for migration or locomotion. And which the main example here I can tell is the elephant. So elephants are daily or actively moving in those seasonal flows or pathway. So when we construct a highway in the pathway, how can they move? They don't know if there is a highway or a vehicle is passing. So they know they are basically shared knowledge. Elephants are using shared knowledge for their locomotion. And they are guided by their matriarch elephant, the older female in the herd. So they have shared this knowledge from the previous ancestors. So they are following their path. So they don't know whether a new highway is constructed in their path or not. So they naturally move and then conflict occurs, collisions occurs. They may uh, attack a human or not. It convert territorial spaces. So wildlife corridors also act like so every animal should have a space. So if they are fragmented, the space will be low, the competition will be high. So there will be a limited resource only. So they have to survive. So there may be a problem with the territorial space in the species range. So this wildlife also corridor helps in the, as I mentioned, movement. So they can move to a new space or new patch and establish a population there. And coming to last one is the ecosystem services, like the sea discussed. So when these animals or wildlife moves, we carry some seeds or plants with them. As they grow, as they move, they grow the path with vegetations and plants. So they are actually rejuvenating the forest again and the tropic balance of the ecosystem. Like this wildlife corridor plays a major part in prey predator interaction. So if a predator can move to another place by this corridor, which can help in the tropical balance of the ecosystem, like maintaining the prey predator balance. So these are the important why we need a corridor to prevent all these things to help. And coming to next is the fragmentation crisis. So this is the part where this webinar is interesting, like the habitat fragmentation. This is the reason why wildlife corridor exists. So I have taken four effects in this slide: island effect, the inland depression, landscape, and migratory roadblock. So coming to first one, so what is habitat fragmentation? So it is not continuous. It is separated. A continuous natural vegetation is separated by human infrastructure like bridges, roads, highways, dams, anything. Anything human infrastructure that has been separating a natural forest cover or a natural path, natural patch. So coming to this island effect, the island effect happens when forests are broken down into small isolated patches by a road or other human activity. These patches act like islands. So you know islands. Islands are surrounded by water only. So like that, the wildlife is trapped in that area. Wildlife is too small to provide enough food. So if someone is trapped, they must have limited resources, water, etc. And since animals cannot safely move between these patches, they face resource shortage and high risk of local extinction. So I can see in the picture like the main population has been separated by the man-made structures. So like that habitat fragmentation, the population will get into an island-like thing. So it will gradually decrease their chance of survival and the high risk of local extinction of the population. And coming to next, the genetic bottleneck, as I previously mentioned, the inherent depression. Habitat fragmentation forces wildlife into small isolated groups, reducing their genetic diversity. Limited mate cause inbreeding, which leads to harmful traits. Harmful traits like deformalities, weaker immunity, lower reproduction. Over time, this population may lose the ability to adapt to change. So because of this inbreeding depression, mm, no new genes are coming into this population as they haven't moved. So no other outside genes are not coming into this population. So they mate with the close relatives and they have this inbreeding depression like lower reproduction, weaker immunity, unhealthy offsprings like that. So gradually they lose the ability to adapt to environmental changes. So because of that, they are entering into an extinction vortex. An extinction vortex is a downfall spiral movement of an animal or a species which will not recover to a healthy population or a healthy species because it is impossible for them to recover into a healthy population. So, because of this inbred depression, these small populations are entering into an extinction vortex. They become too small. The population, the number of size is relatively very small and unhealthy to recover. Coming to next is the increased edge effect. So, because of habitat fragmentation, it increased the edge effect, entering a long exposed borders and shrinking the safe forest cover. So these edges alter the microclimate by letting in harsh sunlight, dry winds, disrupting the cool, humid condition the wildlife needed. So when the edge effect increases, creating a long exposure, it will change the microclimate of the internal forest core. Like mentioned, the dry winds and harsh sunlight will disturb the cool, humid conditions in the forest core. So what will happen if this dry and sunlight and dry winds enter this core region? It will affect the species which is depend on the humid cool climate. So this dry sunlight and winds will disturb the species that depend on this humid forest core. And also, it will be an entry points for the invasive species like Lantana camara, which will spam the native plants and vegetation and further degrade the habitat. You know what will happen if an invasive species Lantana occurs or comes into a forest patch. It will dominate the habitat. It will destroy the native species. So that's the increased exhibit. And coming to the last one, the migratory roadblock. This linear infrastructure completely cuts off the ancient seasonal pathways of long-ranging species. The long-ranging species here mentioned are the elephants, tigers, etc. The trapped wildlife is forced into human-dominated spaces, escalating severe crop raiding and conflict. So, as I later mentioned, when their seasonal pathways are blocked by the roads and highways, they will navigate to human-dominated landscape. And when they enter a human-dominated landscape, they will forage, basically crop and other things, and which will escalate the human-animal conflict. So these are the cause of crisis of habitat fragmentation. Coming to next is the type of wildlife corridors. So there are four types of wildlife corridors: linear corridor, stepping stone corridor, and stepping stone corridor, landscape corridor, and riparian corridor. First, we will go linear corridor. So linear corridor is a continuous, unbroken strip of natural vegetation that physically links two larger core habitats to a developed landscape. So linear corridor is a continuous, unbroken strip of natural vegetation that physically links two larger core habitats. So this linear corridor connects or links the two larger habitats through a developed landscape. A developed landscape can be a river, mountain, hill, anything. So it's a continuous pathway. So most of the elephants and tigers use this pathway for their migration. The example is the Moyar River Valley corridor, which is in the Nilagiri Biosphere Reserve. Coming to next is the Stepping Stone corridor. As of linear corridor, Stepping Stone corridor is not a continuous pathway. It's a series of small disconnected habitat patches arranged like islands across a human dominated landscape. So the linear corridor mostly on the forest pathway, but the stepping stone corridor are in the human dominated landscape. It's a functional chain of green islands, which wild animals used for taking a rest or stop and just forage and then move like that. Arranged like islands, like a functional islands for them to move long distance. An example is a private coffee estate in Tour. So the elephants stop or rest in this corridor and move to another island. So that way it moves like a function of thing. Okay. Most of the corridors in India are stepping stone corridor because most of the forest areas are human dominated landscape, becoming a human dominated landscape. And another landscape corridor, a massive kilometer wide expanse of land that integrates the entire topography, includes forest, hills, rivers, to connect regional areas. So it is a kilometer wide expanse of land. And in this landscape corridor, it not only only forest or river is there, all the regional ecosystem will be present in the landscape further, like forest, hills, rivers, streams. The best example is the Kerry Arc landscape, which is in the foothills of the Himalayas in the and connect the protected areas of Ranthambore, Dutwa, and Corbett. And it is also a transnational corridor which share border with Nepal, India and Nepal. We will discuss more about this in the coming slides. And the last one is the riparian corridor. So riparian corridor is basically a river or a stream that provide a habitat and a pathway for wildlife. So other than these three, riparian is strictly in a river or stream pathway, which is especially used by elephants when in the arid regions. When the water scarcity is high, these corridors are mostly used in the arid regions where water bodies offer crucial resources. So they can feed on these water bodies and the nearby vegetation or nearby patches for their food. Chilla Mortichor corridor, which is in Uttarakhand, is an example of riparian corridor. So we have completed the four corridors here. And coming to the engineered corridors, the man-made corridors. As the title suggests, these are the corridors designed or made by us. The previously explained are our natural corridors. These are all I'm going to explain about the man-made corridors. The man-made purposely build structures designed to help wildlife safety. First, linear infrastructures like highways, railways, and canals. It builds structures either over or under the bridge. Underpasses are also there and overpasses are also there, mimicking their natural environment. So the mimicking the natural environment is important because if we just construct any underground or overpasses, animals will not go because they have a vegetation or a native natural thing. So they must know or they must understand that this is like a forest, so I can move safely. So we have to mimic the exact natural environment. So animals can cross with the risk of kill or genetic isolation. So there are three major engineered corridors: terrestrial underpasses, overpasses or green bridges, or canopy bridges or aerobial crossings. So we will discuss the next slide about all this. Terrestrial underpasses. These are the massive elevated sections of highways that leave the natural floor completely untouched. Underneath, allowing large mammals to walk right below the traffic. So these underpasses, in the underground, animals or wildlife movement is highly active, and in the over human activities like vehicles, highways, roads, vehicles are passing. So the example is the NH44 Pench corridor, which is in Madhya Pradesh, which is a 16-kilometer stretch of highway, and underneath there are wild movements. And the camera traps are documented movements of tiger, elephant, etc. So another interesting thing about the Pench Wildlife Sanctuary is that the Jungle Book is inspired by the Pench Wildlife Sanctuary. The Bengal tiger and Bagheera, Bengal tiger, the Sher Khan and the Bagheera, the Black Panther, are inspired or portrayed in the Pench by the Rupert Kipling in the Jungle Book, portrait of the Pench Wildlife Sanctuary. And coming to the green bridges, which are overpasses. Underpasses are full naturally, so we don't need to do anything, just mimic their natural environment like growing trees and other things. So green bridges, the wide bridge-like structures built over highways, covered with soil, grass, nature trees, blending perfectly with the jungle canopy. So like I said, the over bridges, under the vehicles are moving, and the above there is a connection like a bridge for the animals to move. So it also important thing is perfectly with the surrounding jungle canopy. It has to blend with the nature. So it has to be covered, it will be covered in the soil, grass, and native trees. The Delhi Mumbai Expressway is an example of the green bridges, which is in the buffer zone. It is situated in the buffer zone of the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve from Delhi to Mumbai. It's a 12-kilometer stretch with five overpasses and 1.2 kilometer stretch of underpasses. So it is the first corridor in the country, in our country, and it has becoming more popular in the last month. And coming to next is the arboreal crossing, which is a specialized corridor constructed to help free-dwelling wildlife. Free-dwelling wildlife means basically monkeys, giant squirrel, marsupilami, sloth, etc. Like to bypass the man-made barriers like roads or clearings. The example is the Annamalai Hills Canopy Bridge. Like in the previous slide here, you can see the monkey crossing in the structure made by the. So another thing is the National Geography Channel. There is a program named On the Brink. The season 2, there is a episode on the lion-tailed macaque in the Valpara district. So in this program, it is really clearly mentioned about this passage, the man-made passage in the Valpara district to reduce the lion-tailed macaque human conflict. And coming to the wildlife corridors in India, so I have taken some important wildlife corridors in India. First one is a Terry Arc landscape corridor, which I before mentioned, that connects the protected areas such as Ranthambore Ridgeway Corbett across the foothills of the Himalayas, which is a landscape corridor. And coming to next is the Eastern Ghats corridor, which connects the Eastern Ghats to facilitate the movement of species such as tiger and leopard between Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. Next is the Kasaranga Karbi Mangalore corridor. It is an important corridor for elephant movement between Kasaranga National Park and Karbi along hills in Assam. Next is the Kanha corridor, a significant tiger corridor that facilitates movement and genetic exchange between Kanha and the Pench Tiger Reserve. So it is an important corridor in our country because the Project Tiger was implemented in this Kanha Pench region. And Nilagiri Biosphere Reserve in the southern side, integrating numerous small and large habitats across Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. And this corridor support multiple species, including tiger and elephant. So I have taken an example or just the Western Ghats example like the Nilagiri Wayanad corridor, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. The state covers Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. And Nilagiri Wayanad corridor is one of the largest elephant ranges in Asia. Vital for tiger dispersal also in Bandipur, Nagarhole, Mudumalai, and Wayanad. So most of the Asian elephants in the Western Ghats use this corridor for their migration. The Brahmagiri Nilagiri corridor connects Brahmagiri Wildlife Sanctuary with Nilagiri Biosphere, support elephant and tiger movements. Annamalai Parambikulam Periyar corridor in Kerala and Tamil Nadu link Annamalai Tiger Reserve with Parambikulam and Periyar. Also, tiger tiger migration and elephant migration. Talakkad Mundandure Periyar corridor, an important corridor in the Western Ghats, which facilitate the tiger movements mostly. Southern Western Ghats are important for tiger conservation and endemic species. Saravadi Dandeli corridor supports elephants and leopards to northwestern Ghats forest is in Karnataka. So this is a map showing the Western Ghats, our elephant and tiger corridors. So it is a 1,500-kilometer long file from the Gujarat to Tamil Nadu, Kanyakumari. So it's an over on 1,64,280 kilometers square. So in this Western Ghats region, most of the wildlife corridors are present on the ecologically sensitive zone, which is 37% of the total Western Ghats. And there are 8 tiger corridors in Western Ghats from 32 total in our country, and 32 elephant corridors from 150 corridors from our country. We will discuss it more in the details. The elephant corridor. So India is home to nearly 60% of the world's wild Asian elephant population. So there are basically two types of elephants present in our world now. One is the African elephant and another is the Asian elephant. And the government has identified 150 valid elephant corridors across 15 range states. These linear strips of land connect habitat, allowing safe seasonal migration, genetic exchange, and reducing human elephant conflict. So this corridor helps in the genetic exchange, seasonal migration, and reducing the human elephant conflict. So these corridors are identified by the Project Elephant Division under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change (MoFCC), which is the ministry which uh, what ensures or do all the things related to forest and nature and environment in collaboration with the Wildlife Trust of India and respective state forest department. So it is a combined initiative or a collaboration to make this corridor successful. So they are mapped based on the elephant movement patterns, vegetation type, and landscape connectivity, which are mainly done by camera traps, radio coloring, etc. So this brings the total number of such corridors to 150, a remarkable increase from 88 registered in 2010. So this report came in 2023 with the addition of 62 more elephant corridors in the report. So India basically have 33 elephant reserves. So West Bengal is the has the highest elephant corridors in our country with the 26 elephant corridors, constituting 17% of the total elephant corridors in our country. And the East Central India contributes 52 corridors, around 35%. Northeast region has 48 elephant corridors, which is 32%. And Southern India has 32 corridors, 21%. And Northern India has the lowest number with 18 corridors. You can see the herd of elephant crossing the corridor. And I have taken, these are the region-wise examples of corridors in our country. I have taken only some important few corridors here. From the northern region, we have Chilla Motichor, the Rajaji landscape, Uttarakhand, which is a riparian corridor. Ravasan Sonati corridor in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. And the east central region, we have Jamai Kai corridor in Bihar and Similipal Hatrar corridor in Odisha. Coming to northeast region, we have Palke Domina Rosni corridor in Arunachal Pradesh and Dibru Saikhawa corridor. It's an interstate corridor in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. So basically in India, we have 3 corridors like interstate, intrastate, and transnational. So interstate means the corridor is it links between or shared between 2 states, 2 or more states. Intra means inside the state, and transnational means sharing with the another countries like the terry or landscape which shares with India and Nepal, like that. And coming to southern India, we have Kanyanpura Moyar corridor in Karnataka, Chamara Rajnagar Talmal at Mithali corridor, also an interstate corridor with Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, Kudrakote Tirunelveli corridor in Wayanad, and Kalhati Segurat Lenore corridor is present in the Tamil Nadu. So they all India have around 150 elephant corridors till now. So making to know more detail, have taken one example or one corridor like Mudumale Nilambur Valley corridor is an interstate corridor here in between Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So this corridor connects Mudumale Tiger Reserve of Tamil Nadu and the North Division Forest. Sorry, Mudumale Reserve, Tamil Nadu to Nilambur Forest Division in Kerala by Gudalur Forest Division in Tamil Nadu. So it is a 35-kilometer long stretch with around 1 kilometer corridor. It's regular, but its peak around southwest monsoon time. So around 60 elephants are actively moving in this corridor. Camera traps are evidence that the active movements of elephants in this corridor. And the main problem with this corridor is there is a national highway 67 passing close to this corridor, which is associated with a heavy vehicular traffic. So maybe some conflict arise because of that. And a high tension power line of 40 kilometers are also passing near the corridor. These two concerns are concerned about the wildlife corridor. So many elephants are electrocuted because of this high power line tension. And coming to next is the tiger corridor. So the National Tiger Conservation Authority, in collaboration with the Wildlife Institute of India, has published a document connecting tiger population for long-term conservation. So this document has mapped out around 32 tiger corridors in our country, which intervention for which are operational through a tiger conservation plan, mandated under the section of 38.5 of the Wildlife Protection Act. So the tiger conservation or tiger population blooming came after only the tiger project. Okay. So these corridors are natural structure forest land that connect distant tiger reserves and protect areas, allowing tigers to disperse, find new territories and maintain genetic health. So Madhya Pradesh has the highest number of tiger corridors in India. So this is a map showing tiger corridors of our country. As you can see, there are 82 corridors in our country. And although this is Kanha Pench corridor, the most critical, functional, and globally renowned wildlife corridor in India, stretching across the Satpura Malakal Hill in the central India. So this corridor is dominated by tropical, moist, and dry deciduous forest. The corridor gained global conservation attention during the expansion of the national highway. As I later mentioned, the underbridge, the National Highway 44 NH44, which directly bisects the critical forest path. The National Highway Authority of India, under technical guidance of the Wildlife Institute of India, constructed a 9 delicate wildlife underpasses at a 16-kilometer stretch through the corridor for the safe passage of these wildlife. The camera trap monitoring regularly document tiger, leopard, prey species also actively using these underpasses. So this corridor connects the Kanha National Park to Pench National Park. So this is the route map of the tiger or this species using the pathway for their migration. So coming to the next part is the human wildlife conflict. So what is human wildlife conflict? Everyone knows that nowadays human wildlife conflict are more than ever spread. And first interaction between wild animals and human population that result in negative impacts. So the human wildlife conflict has only a negative impact on both the species, for us and for the human social, economic, or cultural life for conservation of wildlife population or animals. This can include damage to crops, property, injury, death of people, as well as animals also, and also the spread of disease like Nipah, monkey fever, etc. It can also include competition for resources such as food and water. So this conflict often arises when human activities for urbanization or land use change encroach on wildlife habitats and disrupt their natural behaviors. So this conflict only happens because of us only. We only encroach on these wildlife habitats and disrupt their natural behavior. So it has recognized a global concern, the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, adopted at the COP 15 2022, the Cooperation of Practice of the Convention on the Biological Diversity. Kerala became the first state to declare the human-wildlife conflict a state-specific disaster under the Disaster Management Act 2005. So, what are the types of damages that wildlife conflict causes? The loss of agricultural crops eaten by wild boars. I have just mentioned some mm, wild species only. Many are there. The loss of livestock, leopards become cattle lifters. The loss of life, the lion-human conflict in Gir forest, and the famous man-eating tigers in the Sundarban, leopard-human encounter in Mumbai, wolves-human in eastern UP, and disease also like Mangvi fever in Karnataka and rabies, and also exotic species. So between 2019 and 2024, elephant attack caused more than 2,700 human deaths in India, and while tiger killed 349 people, and hundreds of elephants have been electrocuted and train pollution and poison. With the projections indicating India will become a global hotspot for human wildlife conflict in 2070. So, as per the recent report, India will become a global hotspot for human wildlife conflict by 2070. So, what are the causes of human man animal conflict? The loss, degradation, and fragmentation of wildlife habitat. Because of habitat fragmentation, animals will take into human settlements for resources, food, etc. Competition for resources. Because of limited resources, these species have a competition, and the population may move out of from and settled in the human settlement. Attraction to human settlements. So human settlements they have high calorie deficit food, garbage dumps, and cattle. So mainly easy food, easy resources for them. So only they are attracted towards human settlements. Culture practices. However, agriculture means monoculture. The most of our plantation of vegetation near the forest are teak, eucalyptus, which have no food resources for these wild animals, for the prey species. They don't have anything to do, so they come into human settlements for their resources. Climate change. Climate change shift the weather patterns, and these animals come in search of the water, rules, and the water and resources, and lack of understanding of wildlife behavior, misinterpreting the wildlife behavior, and like that we will panic and escalate the a simple conflict to a and last one is the lack of legal protection, enforcement, and government policies. The weak legal framework and the lack of government policy implementing and untrust to the people. Because of that, these are the causes of animal and conflict. And the impacts. What are the impacts of the human wildlife conflict? Wildlife mortality. Around 186 elephants died in train collisions in India from 2009 to 10 and 2020-21. And 222 were electrocuted between 2018 and 2019. By the, it is a report from the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Assam recorded the highest rain facilities followed by West Bengal and Odisha. So the rain pollutions are happening prominently in our country. So two boys from Tamil Nadu has recently launched a AI-powered rail system which will alert the coming train about the elephant crossing. They have run a trial and they have successful in that thing. So maybe in future we will have these AI-powered things to reduce this type of conflicts. Human casualties, elephant attacks killed over 1,000 people between 2020. causing fear, resentment, and relocation actions with the local communities. Recently, in the Perumbavoor, Ernakulam, there is a prominent elephant conflict. More than 10 years have passed and no measurement have taken till now. They are protesting now. The ecological loss, several vulture species declined by more than 95% in the habitat loss and also from veterinary pets. The drugs they are using for cattle, for moving, for using for the cattle, which is the diclofenac, is a highly antimicrobial drug which they give to the cattle. And when it comes to when the vulture eat the carcass of these cattle and things, they will enter their body like biomagnification, bioaccumulation. They will enter the body and they will die. So most of the vulture species have died because of this diclofenac. So now our government has taken measures and banned this antibiotic, and now the vulture populations are blooming, coming to a recovery period now. And the economic damage, crop losses, livestock degradation, property damage, reduce the farm income. So not only human loss, economic loss also there with the human wildlife conflict. Around 10 to 30% of economic loss have been reported. So these are the some of the most things of the human wildlife conflict. And coming to law is the corridor design. How can we design a corridor? So to identify, first we have to identify the habitat area the corridor is designed to connect. Select several target species for the design of the corridor. Evaluate the relevant needs of each target species. First, we need to identify the habitat area and which target species we have to design the corridor. Try to select more target species so that more species can use the corridor. For each potential corridor, evaluate how the area will accommodate movement of each target species. So we have to evaluate how many species can at a time move at the corridor and draw the corridor map and design a monitoring program. The specifics of a corridor design is the corridor features. The corridor should be wide as possible, around 1,000 feet wide, and maintain as much as natural open space as possible. Using culverts to encourage the use of the culverts. The culverts is an underground pathway. It is basically like an underpasses where animals use for to pass. The human vehicle may be passing the over bridge, so they can move safely underpass. So culverts are basically the underground passes. So maximum land use adjacent to the corridor that reduce the human impacts of the corridor to reduce the human impacts in the corridor. Do not allow housing or other impacts to project into the corridor to form implements movement and increase the harmful edge effect. So you have to decrease the edge effect also and do not allow any housing or other things in the near to the corridor. If housing is permitted next to the corridor, put up conservation easements on adjacent lots to prohibit structures nearest to the corridor and develop strict lighting restrictions for the house adjacent to the corridor. So light pollution is a thing. So you must prevent light going to the corridor side. Like solar things can be used to reduce these things. So how to design? So these are the culverts here. You can see the palm civet moving, migrating to the culverts. The bridge under crossing are preferable. Use a boss culvert at least 12 feet width and the height should be there. Add a 1 foot diameter tube beside the big culvert. So place slightly higher so that it is spread dry clean for smaller wildlife animals. So when we design a corridor, we must not only design only for bigger animals. We should also consider the smaller mammals like civet and other things. So we should also make sure that these animals can also pass through this corridor. For smaller wildlife, position the culvert bottom close to the canyon for not rise from the slope. It must be at the bottom, line of the bottom. Add some dirt and pebbles so that they act as the mimic the natural environment. And on the road above the culverts, install speed bumps and wildlife crossing signs to slow the cars and prohibit street lighting to facilitate use of the crossing. So the highways or above the wildlife corridor, they must mm, install some speed bumps or signboards showing that these are the areas where the wildlife are permanently crossing. So we can warn the vehicles about the movements, thus preventing the conflict or collision. Plant shrubs, low plants, smooth entrance to give animals cover, but don't block the open. So we should plant shrubs and low plants for animals to entrance to give animals the cover, but you should not block the opening. Install tall fences to guide animals towards the culverts. Basically, 6 feet is the minimum criteria. Continuous. Vegetation restoration require maintenance or restoration of native vegetation and long-term management. Provide an adequate environment for restoration and management of the corridor. So we must restore where the fragmentation happens. We must nowadays so many restoration programs are going on like mangrove restoration, forest restoration, etc. So plant native trees, not any exotic or import trees. Native tree shrubs and other plants to provide food and cover, as well as nesting opportunities for birds also. So it's also help other species like birds also for their survival. And that is the management and enforcement. House owners must keep a 30 to 60 feet moat strip between the property and the corridor to reduce fire risk. So the corridor fire can happen like random events. So they must keep a distance from the corridor. Wooden fences are not allowed along the corridor because if a fire outbreak happen, wood will take fire and will uh, increase the damage only. No pets and no feeding in the wildlife. And put a sign explain like lightning, moon, or no trespassing. Like no, basically no human activity should be there in the wildlife. So it's strictly for the wildlife only. Landowners should keep the watch for these violations. So the people or the housing near the corridor should always note any trespassing or any illegal activities are present in this corridor. And strict enforcement and laws should be implemented for any violations. So, and the limitations. What are the limitations of this? Corridor encroachment. Many wildlife corridors remain unprotected or fragmented by roads, railways, mining projects, settlements, etc., increasing the risk and collision, accidental deaths. Delayed compensation. Lengthy procedures, documentation requirements often delay financial assistance, reducing community confidence in government support and mechanisms. So this is an important point. Delayed compensation system. So when elephant crop or destroy a crop or a vegetation, they are not getting the compensation. So it's a lengthy procedure. They have to go to court and document submission, etc., etc., etc. The lengthy procedure. So most of them will, but it will lower the confidence in the government policies and habitat degradation, invasive species, declining forest quality and shrinking food resources, continue to push animal towards agricultural landscape and human sector. And inadequate data and monitoring. Under-reporting of incidents and gaps in wildlife movement, mapping, limit evidence based on planning and reduce the effectiveness of migration, mitigation and strategies. And what are the government initiatives in the wildlife corridor? The Constitutional Protocol of Article 51 say that states that every citizen should improve or protect the nature. That's what the Article 51A. states. The Wildlife Protection Act, the legal tool framework for the protection. The elephant, the project Elephant was established in 1982, helps in the movements and decreasing the poaching of this elephant for the tusk. And Project Tiger for the increasing the population of the tiger. In 1972, it was established. Human wildlife conflict mitigation strategies, early warning mechanism like solar alarm repeller, AI used camera traps, and and seismic sensors and thermal sensors, which can help in any movement, any wildlife movement in the human settlements, like which will give an SMS alert to the people living near the area where the animal have entered, so they can stay indoors and prevent the conflict. Like technological solutions like GIS and satellite imagery can be used to navigate the animals' movements and things, and also radio coloring to correctly note their behavior and movement in the human settlement area. And the amendment to World Protection Act in 1972 acknowledged the wildlife corridors to aid animal movement and reduce human wildlife conflict. Biological Diversity Act in 2002 and the Wildlife Corridor Bill in 2019 are the government initiatives to prevent the wildlife conflict, human wildlife. Coming to the conclusion, so wildlife corridors are not proposed as a mitigation or loss of core habitat. By careful planning and designing, wildlife corridors can help reduce the negative effects of habitat fragmentation by allowing dispersal of individuals between large patches of remaining habitat. Monitoring the use of corridors by target wildlife species an important step in corridor planning to allow for an adaptive management. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandesh. So, do we have any questions from the audience? You can either raise your hands, unmute your mic, or drop them in the chat box. Let's wait for a couple minutes.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, sir. Yeah.
Hello. Can you hear?
Yes, sir.
First of all, let me thank for having an enlightened discussion.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
It was stated that the corridors are used by several animals in the forest. As far as a riparian forest, whether the elephants are using separate corridors or every animals are using the same.
The most of our corridors are used by the elephants only, but other animals are using the corridors as it has been recorded in the camera traps. So mostly elephants are using the corridor for, like as mentioned, the seasonal pathways. So there's an annual pathway, so they are mostly using the corridors. Other animals are also using the corridors.
Same corridors.
Yeah.
It was also stated that as far as human wildlife animals conflict, the same is treated as using the under disaster management.
Yeah.
Not any other law allowing some compensation to the affected party. Only under this provision, disaster management.
Yes, if we come, if it comes under the disaster management, we can speed up the compensation policies. That's what the Kerala state had done.
Yeah.
So if it comes under the disaster, so we can speed up the compensation and solve the problem.
No other state, there is no such law.
No other state have done that. Only Kerala has done that.
Kerala state.
Yeah.
well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
So, Sandesh, what is the reason behind the degradation of corridor?
Sorry, sir, degradation of
What is the reason behind for the degradation of corridor?
corridor. Basically, it's habitat fragmentation only, sir. The main problem is the habitat fragmentation, where we construct bridges, roads in their pathways. So we must analyze the movement of these animals and wildlife and then prepare according to the movement or corridor.
We are talking about linear infrastructure development.
Yeah.
Though there is no any other impact on the corridor
Sorry, sir.
apart
Hello.
from this linear infrastructure development. So there is no any other impact on the corridor.
Yeah, there can be another also like invasive species. Mm, and another is basically
I think
com-
mining is the biggest problem.
yeah, mining is also there. Yeah. The landscape corridor mining is also an important.
And encouragement by the tribal people in the name of
Mm,
tribal people,
yeah.
encouragement also degradation of forest.
Working, illegal trafficking, everything is
Basically, what is the importance of uh, corridor?
so. Sir, can you repeat the question?
What is the importance of corridor?
Importance. Basically, it's the main importance is the genetic health. Sir. It prevent the inbreeding depression and the migration of the wildlife.
It means the corridor used by all, from mouse to primate, all terrestrial mammal to arboreal mammals.
Mostly they are used by elephants and tigers, leopards, other mostly predator prey species. Sir. We can also make for smaller animals also.
So, how in human-dominated landscape, how will maintain this corridor?
So that's what the stepping stone corridor comes from. It's a chain of corridors. So we can make a path for the animals to move, so it will not affect the human sector.
So, corridor, are there any fixed size?
Yeah, there must be a minimum width of 1 kilometer. It's based. It will depend on how many animals or wildlife species are crossing or using that pathway. It depends on that. But minimum, I think around 1 kilometer, which should be there.
Okay, okay. This is depending upon the animals species,
Yeah, yeah.
which
Which
animal
animals
actually
are
is.
crossing or moving that pathway.
Thank you, sir. So I think, is there anybody else? I think that's it for our questions. So I think we can conclude our session. As we come to the end of today's session, we extend our sincere thanks to Sandesh for this enlightening session on wildlife corridors. And we also thank everyone who joined and actively participated. Your curiosity and engagement are what continue to drive Biorex forward as a meaningful and growing scientific community. So I think we will all meet next Saturday for our Biorex session. As usual, the link and the details of the session, the topic, everything will be posted in the WhatsApp groups. So please check it out. And there's also this reminder that the registrations for BioTalks, which is the student knowledge sharing series that we were a part of today, is still open. And if you're passionate about any topic in biology, you can lead a session with Biodex. So if you're interested, you can register through the form shared in our Biodex group or the link in our Instagram bio. With that, we officially conclude today's BioTalk session. Thank you all for participating in this discussion. See you in the next BioTech session. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandesh.